Even if you know nothing about this world, this fantastical world, this extensive fictional world of Game of Thrones, you can still watch this upcoming series and enjoy it. But to make things easier, I'll help you out. Hey everybody, if you're anything like me, you're super excited for the upcoming The House of the Dragon series. I've watched Game of Thrones a few times. I've even read George R.R. Martin's book series twice. You know, the big 1,000-page plus books, those. And I've even watched the disappointing last season of Game of Thrones more than once. So, all in all, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, but I know that not everyone is. And even if you are a Game of Thrones fan, maybe you're not as brushed up on the Game of Thrones world as you were back when the series was on HBO. So I thought, why not make a video of the top 5 things you should know about Game of Thrones and this world before you get into the House of the Dragon. August 21st is right around the corner, and if you try really hard, you could watch the entire series. I'm pretty sure you can get through all of George Martin's books, but you don't have to, because this House of Dragon series takes place almost 200 years before the Game of Thrones series took place. So even if you know nothing about this world, this fantastical world, this extensive fictional world of Game of Thrones, you can still watch this upcoming series and enjoy it. But to make things easier, I'll help you out. The House of the Dragon is a first spin-off series that HBO has come out with in the Game of Thrones universe, and if all goes well, I'm sure other spin-offs and sequels will be greenlit, so I'm super excited about this. So before we get started, guys, please like and share and subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be coming out with weekly reviews of the House of the Dragon, so if you want to follow that alongside with me, you gotta subscribe. So here we go. Number 1, what is a Westeros? Westeros is one of the 4 continents set in this world of Game of Thrones. The other 3 continents are Essos, Sothoryos, and Ulthos. The continent of Westeros is governed by this political entity known as the Seven Kingdoms. Westeros is a harsh realm. There are significant increases and decreases in temperature, most notably a winter. Winter in this realm can last for ages, for decades, for a lifetime, which is great irony, because if you know anything about the Game of Thrones world, it is this. Whether you are a small folk, common man, or a noble, rich and wealthy, your lifespan is not that long. You never know when someone's gonna come around the corner and cut you dead. So the fact that these seasons run much longer than these entire lifespans is pretty ridiculous. So in essence, you can be born and raised and live for 30, 40, 50, 60 years and never see warm days. Winter can last that long. Or you can be born in a time where winter is long gone, but it will be back around the corner. And this is why one of the most notable words of the Game of Thrones series is from the House of Stark. Winter is coming. And when it's here, it's going to be harsh, it's going to be brutal, and you better prepare for it. So thousands of years before the start of the Game of Thrones series, and even the House of the Dragon series that's going to be coming out, Westeros was home to the children of the forest. These ancient people were gifted with the knowledge of the world around them. They had great power, and they revered the land that they lived on. And then when humans came along, friction started. The children of the forest were forced to flee their homes, and they headed far north. During this struggle, a new entity is introduced, and this entity is deadly. The White Walkers ring a bell. These are cold-blooded. These are creatures with ice in their veins. They just want to tear down and kill anyone on their path. So to stop this devastation from coming, the children of the forest and mankind were forced to unite, and they work together to form this magical wall that separates Westeros in 2 parts. North of the wall is this frozen, barren tundra where just the wildlings live. The wildling population is fierce, they are strong, they are vicious, and they are well suited to life in the tundra because it's very, very cold. And on the flip side, the people below the wall are those who belong to the different great houses that we were introduced introduced to in the Game of Thrones series. Number 2, who are the Valerians and what is House Targaryen? So in their initial days, the Valerians were basically shepherds, but then they rose to prominence. How? Because they came across dragons. These dragons were in this volcanic area, in this peninsula, in the area they lived in. So the power didn't just come from finding dragons, they had to tame these dragons. But once they did tame these dragons, it was no looking back. With the help of the dragons, they were able to establish a new city called Valeria, and they became skilled in magic. Using these skills, they also forged this metallic compound, which is known as Valerian steel later on. Valerian steel was used to fashion weapons, and these weapons were much more powerful and deadly than any weapon the other cultures had around them. The family of Valerian descent, who once ruled the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros, formed the House of Targaryen of Dragonstone. Yes, this is the same abandoned Dragonstone in the Game of Thrones series. But before Dragonstone became this abandoned establishment, it was a fearsome place. Centuries before Game of Thrones even took place, a dragon-riding man called Aegon Targaryen and his 2 dragon-riding sister wives conquered the feuding nations with fire and blood. When Aegon the Conqueror came and took over, the House of Stark fell from their position. This house was once home to the kings of Winter, but after Aegon's conquest, they became the Lords of Winterfell and the Wardens of the North instead. So essentially, the House of Targaryen were the new rulers of Westeros and the Seven Kingdoms. The Targaryen house obviously has a sigil, as does every other house in this world. Their sigil is a 3-headed dragon breathing flames on red and black. The Targaryen reign lasted for hundreds of years, and it probably would have continued. However, it came to a crashing halt when King Aerys Targaryen took the throne. It was through his bloodshed and violent streak that he became known as the Mad King, and it was his murderous actions and commands that led to a revolt. This rebellion was known as Robert's Rebellion, and yes, this is where Robert Baratheon came into play and Jaime Lannister came into play, and we saw all of that once again in the Game of Thrones series. Number 3, what are the dragons and what's the deal with these dragon eggs? Obviously, dragons are massive creatures that soar in the skies, they breathe fire, and they lay devastation to everyone around them. In this world, dragons are associated with magic. And this magic seems to hold true when hundreds of years after the last dragons roamed the earth, 3 dragon eggs are discovered and hatch. Does that ring a bell? We're talking about the mother of dragons, Daenerys Targaryen. As we saw in the Game of Thrones series, dragons are essentially weapons of mass destruction. They lay waste wherever they go. They can burn entire cities to the ground. They can devastate armies. Essentially, if you do not have a dragon under your control, or at least tamed as much as they can be, you are definitely playing the second fiddle. And in the Targaryen heyday, they controlled the dragons. So it's no wonder why they ruled the Seven Kingdoms for so long. So think about it. Not only did they have the dragons, but they also had the Valerian steel that I mentioned a little earlier. How did any other house stand a chance against them? It was during the reign of King Viserys I Targaryen where it became customary to place a dragon egg in the cradle of a newborn child. If the dragon egg that was placed in the cradle hatches, it's a sign that the child is a true Targaryen. However, if the egg that is placed in the cradle does not hatch, or a weak dragon is born and dies quickly, it is a sign of a bad omen. Hundreds of years later, even after the last dragons roamed the skies, the dragon eggs were still valuable possessions. Obviously, we know that while Daenerys Targaryen had those 3 eggs, when news spread that these eggs were in her possession and then the eggs hatched into these dragons, you could see just how scared the rest of the people were and how quickly they wanted to put her and the dragons to an end so that she wouldn't devastate Westeros like her forefathers did. Number 4, the Iron Throne. So even if you are someone who has never watched a second of Game of Thrones, has never read a word from the books, you have heard of the Iron Throne. The Iron Throne is a seat that the powerful armies throughout Westeros fought for and wanted to claim for themselves. The Iron Throne basically represents the difficulties of ruling and the brutality that comes with winning it. When Aegon the Conqueror built the Iron Throne, he built it out of the swords of his conquered enemies. He did this because he didn't want anyone to think that being king would be easy, and he wanted to be reminded of how hard it is to rule this vast world. So obviously in this new trailer of the House of the Dragon, we see that the Targaryen house is in full power. They reign supreme with the strength of their sword and the fire of their dragons. But the defining symbol of their supremacy, the Iron Throne, is very different than the Iron Throne we see in the Game of Thrones series. Number 5. The notable characters of the House of the Dragon series. So let's start with the House of Targaryen first. King Viserys Targaryen. A great council at Harrenhal put Viserys on the throne, which means that he succeeded the old king Jaehaerys Targaryen. King Viserys is described as a kind-hearted, good-natured man. However, just because he's a good-natured man, just because he's kind-hearted, does that mean he's a good king? As we've seen in this world of Game of Thrones, being a good man doesn't get you far. You need to be cunning, you need to be sly, you need to know the right people and have the right connections. Also, being a good man brings with it a lot of enemies. All those enemies, all those rivals are looking for a way to get to your position. They're looking at a way to double cross you, and they're looking at a way to assert their own power and influence over you. So then we have Prince Daemon Targaryen. He is King Viserys' brother and one of his heirs. Like King Viserys, Prince Daemon also has the blood of the dragon. He is a staunch warrior and he is a dragon rider. But is he friend or foe to the king? Does he support the king and his rule, or does he want it for himself? Obviously, Daemon Targaryen is a major player in this series. He's a major character. We are going to follow his journey and see what it is he wants, what it is that he goes through to get what he wants, and does he actually, in the end, get what he wants? Which is obviously the throne. Whereas we have Prince Daemon fighting for the throne on one hand, on the other hand, we have Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. She is King Viserys' firstborn child, and obviously she is of pure Valerian blood. So considering she's the daughter of the king, considering she's a princess born into a powerful house, you would think that she has nothing left wanting in her life. However, as we know in the Game of Thrones world, being a woman is a big liability. This is a world where the man reigns supreme, where he exerts his influence, where being a man means you gain and attain power. So it doesn't matter how highborn a woman is, it doesn't matter who her father is, what her lineage is, she has to fight the men who may be of lesser birth than her in order to fight for what's hers, and even then, it might not be hers. This was also the case with Princess Rhaenys. She witnessed the Great Council at Harrenhal give her cousin Viserys the throne. Why? Because he was a man and she was a woman. As such, she is known as the queen that never was. That throne could have been hers if it weren't for having a male cousin. And lastly, she's married to Lord Corlys Velaryon. Lord Corlys Velaryon is also known as the Sea Snake. He is the Lord of the House Velaryon, which is a Valerian bloodline and is as old as the House Targaryen. He is known throughout the world as the most formidable and famous nautical adventurer. Basically, he roams the seas and he conquers. His skills lead to him amassing great wealth, and that wealth is even more than the House Lannister. And we know how rich and formidable they are. Then we have Sir Otto Hightower. Every good king and every powerful empire needs an advisor there to guide the king and make sure that the realm is functioning properly. This duty falls onto Otto Hightower. He is known as the Hand of the King. As we know, Hand of the King is a huge responsibility. A lot of people vie for this position. It is a position of great value, both personally and professionally, because it puts you right next to the king. You have his ear, you can advise him, and you can influence him. Sir Hightower is loyal to the king, he's loyal to the realm, and he is there to protect the king from his foes. According to Sir Hightower, one of the biggest threats to King Viserys and his rule is his brother, Prince Daemon. So what'll be interesting to see is how Otto Hightower talks to King Viserys about his brother, whether King Viserys heeds his words, and how Sir Hightower uses his position and his might to maybe fight and go up against Prince Daemon Targaryen. Alicent Hightower. She is the daughter of Sir Otto Hightower, which means she's in the close circle of the king and of the nobility of the House of Targaryen. She grows up in the Red Keep, which basically means she knows the in and outs of this place. She is familiar and friendly with the Targaryen household, and she is probably privy to the high-stakes players in this world. Alicent Hightower is known as the most comely woman in all of Westeros. Sir Criston Cole, he's from Dorne. Unlike the others who have fairly high birth, he is lowborn. He is born to a steward of the Lord of Blackhaven. This means he has no titles, he has no wealth, he has no land to his name. What he does have is his skills with the sword, and also, as we saw from the trailer, he's easy on the eyes. So I'm curious to see what role he plays. Is he an ally or a foe to Daemon Targaryen? Is he friends with Alicent Hightower? Or does he know the princess, Rhaenyra? Lastly, we have Mysaria. Mysaria's origin is totally unlike any other character that I've discussed. She has been sold throughout Westeros a multitude of times, which means that she doesn't have control over her life. However, she doesn't let this bring her down. She uses it and makes it her strength, and one day she finds herself in close cahoots with Daemon Targaryen. She is not only an ally, but one of his most trustworthy companions. Now, what remains to be seen is this a plan? Is Daemon just a tool to get her to where she wants to be and leave this life of hardship? Or is there really and truly a companionship there? So guys, those are my 5 points to know before you watch the House of the Dragon series. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you're looking forward to this series as much as I am. The Game of Thrones world is vast. There's many characters, there's many ups and downs. It's very intricate, but it's very, very interesting. I'm really curious to see how the House of the Dragon deals its cards, how successful it is, because I would love to see more and more and more stories come out of this world. So I'm eagerly awaiting August 21st, which is just a few days away, and I can't wait to review the series. So please, like I said earlier, like and comment and share and subscribe to this channel to follow the House of the Dragon reviews and also to see what else is going on in this channel. Also, follow me on social media on Twitter and Instagram. I am Burry602, and I'll see you next time. Bye!